Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
7:06 here on this Wednesday morning. It's O'Connor and Company, and we've got a really important show lined up. He doesn't get a whole lot of attention. He likes it that way, but he's actually one of the most influential congressmen in this town, especially right now as we head toward this reconciliation process. He's the chairman of Ways and Means, Congressman Jason Smith. He'll be our guest at 8:05. And then at 8:35, Zach Smith of Heritage Foundation. It's Larry O'Connor alongside Julie Gunlock. Good morning, Julie. You know, you're one of the most influential people in this town, too, but you don't like to...
Good morning.
You don't like to brag about it. And as we're speaking in superlatives, how about the finest political analyst and correspondent in this town? He's Washington Examiner's own BYRON YORK. BYRON, always good to talk to you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Good morning, folks. Good to be here.
So you did a nice breakdown here. In fact, I used it as a bit of a guideline for our 5 o'clock segment on this group chat signal thing. And it seemed like the major questions were, was it appropriate to use this app for this conversation? Was there confidential or classified information that was shared inappropriately? And how did Jeffrey Goldberg get into this chat? So do we have a resolution on those questions?
Well, on the first one you mentioned, the appropriateness of using Signal, I think that could be the least important of the group in the sense that we had testimony yesterday from the director of the CIA that they use it. Now, maybe they shouldn't, and that's a policy thing, but it's not anybody actually engaging in any misconduct or anything like that. So I kind of put that one off to the side. But we do have these two really huge questions, which is how did Jeffrey Goldberg end up on this text, which is just high government officials? Okay. So you have to remember, he's the editor of The Atlantic, and maybe some listeners don't really follow The Atlantic. The Atlantic is a leading magazine of the resistance. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. As an institution, The Atlantic hates Donald Trump, and it wants him to fail. Okay. So, of course, the editor of that publication ends up on this secret talk among top Trump administration officials. So how the heck did that happen? And then the other question was, given the text, was there classified information involved and was it mishandled? So those are really the two big questions of this whole thing.
Well, I also find it interesting that Goldberg continues to use the word war plans.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that, because it doesn't sound like war plans were actually revealed here.
Well, we really don't know. What Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, came out and said, look, nobody was texting war plans, just didn't happen. And Jeffrey Goldberg, who was undoubtedly on this exchange, said, yes, they were. They were talking about targeting. They were. This is the attack on the Houthis on March 15th. They were talking about targeting, how they were going to be targeted, who the targets were, using airplanes with crews as opposed to drones or missiles or something. Who was going to be the next targeting, what the sequence of targets were. So he's saying, look, they were discussing. It's just flat out true. They were discussing war plans. So we have this conflict here, and I'm not actually taking sides on this right now because we need to know more.
No, and that's why we like your reporting on this as usual, BYRON.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw Jeffrey Goldberg. I mean, the obvious, next step here would be you've got the CIA director and the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, yesterday saying under oath that there was no classified information shared on this. And Jeffrey Goldberg saying that he doesn't want to release everything else that he has because it is classified. So Tim Miller, of all people at Bulwark, had him on a podcast yesterday and said, listen, they say it's not classified, so why not release it all? That seems like a logical question. Where does this stand now? Why wouldn't Jeffrey Goldberg release this?
Well, you had, in addition, Michael Waltz, the national security advisor who's in the middle of all this, appeared on Laura Ingram's program on Fox last night, and he said flatly, no confidential information. On the other hand, so Laura asked the same question, is okay if it's not confidential, are you okay with just making it public? And he said, no, I'm not comfortable with that because it's the kind of operational stuff that we don't want to just advertised. Now, I do understand that in the government there is a difference between something that's just unclassified and then something that's actually public. I mean, there's lots of things that are not classified that the government still doesn't want to make public.
But still sensitive, of a sensitive nature.
Right.
Yeah,
Sensitive, exactly. So I think that's actually true there. But clearly, there were these texts. There are documents, essentially, electronic documents for somebody to look at and tell us what was put out on the text. And was it classified at the time it was put out? Has it later been declassified? I don't know. But this is something that can be discovered.
Right. Byron, could you also shed some light on that? Because there is a reference in this text exchange about switching to high side. They say, we're talking about this on Signal, but I've actually shared things on high side. That sounds like a higher encrypted level of communication, which tells me that they were cognizant of what they were saying and the platform they were saying it on.
Yes, that is a cool national security term for let's discuss this in a classified setting. So obviously they're using Signal, which is commercially available. You can get it at the App Store. And the government, has spent billions and billions of dollars creating all sorts of highly secure communications.
Sure.
So I think by saying we need to talk about this on the high side, they're saying, okay,
Right.
look, we're on Signal now, which is kind of encrypted and kind of secure, but not really big time secure. So let's discuss this important thing on our secure government system.
Julie, do you have anything else on this? Or let me ask, I'd like to follow up, Byron,
Can I raise
and I
one more
don't want to
issue
push.
with you?
Oh, please, go ahead.
Well, there is, I said the two big questions are how did Goldberg end up on the text and was classified information involved? For a lot of people, there's going to be one bigger issue, which was somebody in the Trump White House in touch with the leader of the Trump-hating Atlantic?
Right.
That is, so everybody is saying, okay, well, if this was just a mistake, why was Jeffrey Goldberg in your contact list? Had you been in contact with Jeffrey Goldberg? Because Jeffrey Goldberg is not going to, everything he writes is an attack on the Trump administration.
Absolutely.
That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And so, and look, that's how our media system works. That's totally fine. But I could see the Trump White House saying, why were you in touch with Jeffrey Goldberg? And that's another question that we don't have the answer to.
So, but to be clear, National Security Advisor Waltz he says, I don't know how this happened, but I take full responsibility. Yes. And that's that's what an officer in the Army does. That's what, I mean, the buck stops with him and he's taking the heat for it, but it could very well have been someone on the staff who did this. I got to ask you something. And again, I don't want to pit you against other journalists. You all go about your business the way you do. But Byron, if this happened to you, if you suddenly saw on your phone that you were included in a Signal group chat of this nature, would you lurk there and just sort of see what happens because of the newsworthiness of it, or would you sort of alert them and say, hey guys, just so you know, I don't think I'm supposed to be here? It's a kind of an ethical quandary for a journalist, I would think.
Yeah, well, Goldberg actually kind of addressed that question by saying that when it first happened, when he was first invited onto the text, that he didn't think it was real. He thought he was being spoofed or something was going on, but that it was a fake deal. And so he stayed on, and he doesn't really become completely, totally convinced that, hey, this is actually real, until the attack on Yemen takes place. My feeling is if something like this had actually happened, I probably also would have hung around for a while to see what this actually was. It was so unusual that I would say it was. But on the other hand, after it happened, I might identify myself. Now he took the opportunity to write a big magazine piece. He could have actually just gotten in contact with the White House saying, you may not know me, or maybe you do, but I'm the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic Monthly, and this just happened. He could have said that too.
All right. Well, thank you for that. As usual, very frank and straightforward and logical response to this. As you cover all things D.C., it's a rare approach to this business, Byron, and we always appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, folks.
I for one, I mean, listen, obviously, biggest concern here is how Jeffrey Goldberg gets included in this. My second bigger concern is that our national security advisor is using goofy emojis to communicate with the national security apparatus. That's just, little a fist bump, American flag fires. Like,
maybe he's got teenagers.
Is he doing?
Maybe he's got teenagers.
Yes, it is. It's sort of like MAGA bros, It's 7:17. Let's get straight to
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
One burning question in the wake of the rescue of those astronauts who had been stranded up on the International Space Station for 9 months was, could they have been returned under the Biden administration? Why weren't they rescued under the Biden administration? And there have been a lot of he said, she said. I mean, I sort of took the word of the actual astronaut who was stuck up there, who said, Elon Musk is accurate here about what he's saying. But we got it from the spokeswoman from NASA yesterday, Bethany Stevens, sort of reiterated exactly what happened. Here's cut 31.
Well, first of all, we're excited to have Butch, Suni, and Nick all home after an extended stay in space. And you are absolutely right. This was a huge win for the Trump administration and would not have happened without President Trump's intervention.
There you go. I mean, that's pretty definitive there. Now, again, this obviously is a political appointee working for the Trump administration, but, these are also people who have their credibility on the line, and when they make a definitive statement like that, it resonates, and it should resonate, and I don't know why there's any question anymore about this. In fact, I think that there should be a congressional investigation in terms of the decision-making process during the Biden administration, that they were playing with people's lives, damaging them. I mean, sorry, I know we take it for granted now that you can be in space. I'm sorry, being in zero gravity for that long has health effects on you. It's detrimental. And if in fact there is a paper trail or any sort of evidence that the discussion was had and it was determined to not let Elon Musk and SpaceX save the day because it would help Trump, somebody's head should roll. That's despicable behavior.
At the minimum, to put our astronauts in danger like that. I mean, heads should roll, but honestly, this is really dangerous, and it calls into question, whether these astronauts are even safe. If politics has become so bad that they would use sort of, the rescue of these astronauts as something that they couldn't allow because they couldn't give Musk a win, I mean, that's pretty dark, Larry.
Well, It reiterates what we've been saying about Joe Biden and the Biden family for many, many years, and that is he is a despicable human being. He has been his entire political career. There is no surprise here that he would be this brazenly, maniacally political, that he would play with people's lives just for his own political gain. Look at his history. Look at his track record. This is who he is. He doesn't mind destroying people's lives and reputations for his own political benefit. He never has. Just ask Clarence Thomas. Just ask the family of Robert Bork.
Well, but Larry, Biden is he's in charge of the military. I mean, you think about military men and women and their families, knowing that they're under the command of a man who because of politics, wouldn't rescue astronauts. What does that say to military men and women who might be sent into battle from a man who might use them for political advantage? It's really scary for people who serve in these roles.
You're sure right about that. And by the way, one other aspect of this, again, as we're discussing the reiteration and confirmation that the rescue of these astronauts did not happen under the Biden administration, would not have happened until Trump became president and empowered Elon Musk to handle this. Because I doubt Biden, let's say Kamala Harris would have won. Do you think they would have said, okay, Elon, come help? No, they hated Elon Musk. They didn't even invite Tesla to the White House celebration of electric vehicles because that was before Musk supported Trump. But let me just finish with one other thing. Where's the trust the science crowd? Where's the big, we're science, We don't believe in your, big man in the sky you call God. We're all about the science, science, science. Trust the science, believe in science, follow the science, climate change science, science this, science that. They should be outraged. These are two astronauts who were conducting scientific experiments. Aerospace is all about science and exploration and technology and engineering and all of the things that they hold so pure. And it just got politicized beyond anything we have ever seen in our country's history. And I would think that some of the pro-science folks would be pretty outraged by that. But they're pretty silent. It's 7:23.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:37. It's O'Connor and Company on a busy Wednesday morning because, well, that's how we like it. Coming up at 8:05, Congressman Jason Smith, chairman of House Ways and Means Committee. And at 8:35, Zach Smith, he's with Heritage Foundation. Apparently, the D.C. government has asked the federal government for an extra $1 billion in their budget this year. I know I'm getting my money's worth. Aren't you, Julie?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's Julie Gunlock. I am Larry O'Connor, and we have another Northern Virginia mom who is going viral right now. This video from a school board meeting, I believe this was last week.
I think it's older, actually.
Is it? It might be a little bit older. In fact, we covered this when it first hit, didn't we?
Yeah, and I'm glad that it's sort of coming around again. But I believe I think this is a little bit older, like probably 6 months.
Her name is Kaylee Weichbrot, and she brought her son to the public meeting of the school board at Fairfax County Public Schools. This video has been tweeted yesterday by Elon Musk, then retweeted by Governor Youngkin. We'll tell you what the governor had to say about it in a moment, but first, let's hear from the mom. This was the video from that school board meeting with her 2-year-old boy in her arms. Listen.
Hi, I'm Kaylee Weichbrot. I'm a mom of 2 in Fairfax County. This is my oldest, and my husband and I have a difficult decision to make this fall as he is approaching preschool age, and we are faced with the decision of whether or not we are going to put our child in public school system where Fairfax County has decided to move forward with instituting gender studies in elementary school. Despite having done a study group, a focus group in the community to see if parents even wanted this. And when parents said no, the board voted 16-0 and said we're moving forward anyways. This shows clearly that they see parents not as partners, but as an obstacle for their agenda. And I have a really hard time looking at him and going, here, I'm just going to give you over to people who do not want to partner with me in how you're going to be raised. School and education is a huge part of a child's life. And early childhood is supposed to be filled with exploration and creativity and fun, not debating issues that are for adults to handle. These kinds of topics should be introduced sensitively and by parents who are raising their children with their values, not with an ideology passed down from the top.
Wise, reasonable, beautifully spoken, and completely, you can't argue with that logic and that basic ethic morality. I want you to know that if Kamala Harris were president, Attorney General Jasmine Crockett would now be prosecuting this woman as a terrorist.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, this triggers me so much because there were so many parents like this during COVID, gently asking for more guidance, gently asking for the schools to be reopened, then the masks to be removed, asking for kids to not have to stay silent during lunch, asking for kids to be able to fully participate, asking for recess to be reinstated, asking for parks to open, asking for basketball courts to open, skate parks to open. This is the attitude of 99.9% of parents. We're kind, we're compassionate, we're understanding, we're patient, and we were treated terribly over and over again. J. Bhattacharya and Marty Makary and several other people getting confirmed is the only consolation. There's been no cost. No one's paid a price for how they treated us. And these good men who fought for parents, that's been a ray of sunshine for a lot of us. But what this woman did, so brave and so good. And I know it's not about COVID. She's talking about some of the sort of adult content.
We're actually about to get into the details of the confirmations in a quick moment. But you're right. I mean, this is just add this to the list. But it's specific to getting between a young child and their parents about things that are so sensitive, so important, and should be shot through a moral lens with regard to sexual behavior.
Yes.
It's really compassionately said. Glenn Youngkin has chimed in on this, not only on the X platform, but also, on this show yesterday. Here's cut 38.
We've been battling this since the day I came in. My very first EO was to get the disruptive education practices out of the classroom.
Thank you.
But the reality is I need the federal government to help, and I'm really pleased that there has been an investigation launched at the Department of Education into these Northern Virginia counties on these problems.
Now, that's specifically to Loudoun and Northern Virginia counties. He also said, and I did not know this, that the entirety of Virginia has reversed a decade of what he called net out migration. In other words, people leaving Virginia more than coming in. Every single county except one, Fairfax. Fairfax County continues to see people fleeing that county. It's the only county in Virginia that is the case.
And Larry, people used to move to Fairfax specifically because of the schools.
That's right. Virginia is stronger across the board, yet Fairfax County has a $300 million deficit. I mean, I don't know how much you need to see. I just said this about Maryland. What's the difference between Maryland and Virginia right now? Well, how about this? What's the difference between Fairfax County and Virginia right now? You guys got to wake up in Fairfax, or it's all going to go away. We'll get into those confirmations that you just mentioned, Marty Makary and J. Bhattacharya, in just a moment.
WMAL, making sense of social media because big tech can't be trusted. Download the WMAL app to stream us for free.
And as Julie just alluded, yesterday was a day of a great triumph for those who believe that there was serious injustices that took place during the COVID pandemic shutdowns. Most specifically, injustice to doctors and scientists who were willing to put their reputations on the line and challenge the propaganda that was being pushed by the World Health Organization and by Anthony Fauci and various entities within the federal government that really had no tolerance for any opposing viewpoints or strategies toward mitigating the pandemic and the spread of the virus. One of the most high-profile individuals was Dr. J. Bhattacharya. He, of course, at the time was Stanford. He had impeccable resume, impeccable credentials as an epidemiologist, and they tried to destroy him. In fact, there's a paper trail of emails. At the time, there was an email, a very famous email, from the head of the National Institute of Health to Anthony Fauci, asking for major pushback. In fact, here, I've got it here in a moment. I want to read it to you. The email was from Francis Collins, N.I.H. director, to Anthony Fauci. This proposal from the 3 fringe epidemiologists who met with the secretary seems to be getting a lot of attention. This is the Great Barrington Declaration that said there's another way to go here with COVID instead of doing the lockdown. And even a co-signature from Nobel Prize winner Mike Levitt at Stanford. There needs to be a quick and devastating published takedown of its premises. I don't see anything like that online yet. Is it underway? That was the email to Anthony Fauci. It was dated October 8th, 2020, 1 month before the election. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and again, that was Francis Collins, who was last seen singing like a hippie, like a stoned hippie at an anti-Trump rally just a couple, I think 12 days ago or something like that. I mean, that guy's a lunatic. And that is the guy who was former NIH director trying to destroy J. Bhattacharya. And anyone who went against the grain on the COVID shutdowns.
His desk, his chair, his office will now be occupied by the man that he attempted to take down with a devastating report. Dr. J. Bhattacharya. It only took 4 years, but
Yep.
his reputation is now restored, intact, and now he's calling the shots. And that is beautiful justice. Add to that, Marty Makary now confirmed as the
A
director.
regular
of
guest
the food-
here.
A regular friend of the program.
Yes.
As the new director of the F.D.A. He, of course, was one of the outspoken critics of the vaccine policy. He actually said, what about natural immunity?
Right.
What about, why are we prioritizing 17-year-old healthy, athletic
Right.
young men
Right.
when they are the least
Enforcing them.
vulnerable here? Enforcing them. And why aren't we talking about myocarditis and potential? Why aren't we talking about
and
what this
women's
is doing
menstrual
to pregnant
cycles
women
being
and
off.
menstrual
Yes.
cycles?
Yes.
Thank you. Well, he is now your director of the Food and Drug Administration. And
Yes.
I still believe, and maybe it's because no one wants to talk about it, or maybe it's because some are talking about it, but you can never talk about it enough. But I will say it again. I still believe that one of the most important issues and one of the most powerful issues in the 2024 presidential election was the COVID-19 lockdown, was the pandemic and what happened as a result of it. What party was in favor of ruining our lives without any basis of science? The party that was in favor of censoring anyone who dared to have an opposing viewpoint, and the party who wanted our freedoms to rule the day. And it still has not been analyzed enough as far as I'm concerned.
Nobody paid a price. No one has said sorry. There's been absolutely no contrition. There's been no guarantees that it won't happen again. Parents are on pins and needles waiting for the next pandemic to come down where schools will be closed and their kids will be, really suffering and distraught. It is horrible that there has been no apologies.
Well,
and no walkbacks, no analysis. You know what we did get really quickly, Larry? We got an article in The Atlantic, since we're talking about The Atlantic, from Emily Oster saying, and I'm talking 10 minutes after they opened the schools, let's declare a pandemic amnesty. That's what parents got. Let's just forget it. Let's just move on. No. We needed an investigation. We needed some focus on this, and we didn't get it. So this is great news for us.
We have a new N.I.H. director,
Yep.
Dr. J. Bhattacharya. We have a new F.D.A. director, Dr. Marty Makary. And we might dismantle the Department of Education. So that's a net win across the board. If that's
right.
all this
Yep.
Trump presidency accomplishes. 752.